all the media is talking about 40 to 70 billion dollars. It's the same. It was the same in Tunisia, and I think, and I'm sure it is the same as well in Yemen. This kind of corruption, where the ruler is in control of the state wealth, is basically comes down to what's called in the corruption science as state capture. These state captures, that's why I see it as quite ridiculous that these regimes are able to reform.
Okay.
Basically, reform.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you. I want to look at the relationship. I'm going to come back to you, sir. I want to look at the relationship with the most powerful nation on earth, the United States. It's quite interesting to see the U.S. reaction to all of this. Let's hear what President Obama's special envoy to Egypt, Frank Wisner, said about President Mubarak over the weekend.
The president must stay in office in order to steer those changes through. I therefore believe that President Mubarak's continued leadership is critical. It's his opportunity to write his own legacy. He's given 60 years of his life to the service of his country. This is an ideal moment for him to show the way forward.
Of course, the U.S. State Department distanced itself from those comments, saying they were Wisner's personal view. But now is Washington's confusion playing out in the region. Mr. Talib, stay where you are. All of you gentlemen, stay where you are. I want to take a phone call from Oliver in Virginia. Oliver, I understand your question or comment is along the same lines. Go ahead, Oliver.
Thank you very much. Basically, my question is the position of the U.S. from President Mubarak is really, they're not standing with him, despite all the favors that he did, especially with the removal of Saddam Hussein and the embargo for 13 years. He played a critical role in this issue. But, you know, we don't see the U.S. standing with the man at this moment. So is that a signal that they don't need him anymore? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Oliver. Let's go back to Sa'aduddin Talib, and I want to take this and tie it into Yemen quite specifically. Oliver from Virginia is saying that the U.S. is not standing by Mubarak. I mean, I think despite Wisner's comments, there seems to be this begrudging acceptance from the United States and other powers that, yes, Mubarak must go now. I wonder, what about a place like Yemen? Are the stakes higher in Yemen, given the Houthi rebellion in the north, the secessionist movement in the south, and of course the direct U.S. interests and global interests in the fact that Al-Qaeda has camps in Yemen and that Yemen allows the United States to conduct drone attacks on Al-Qaeda camps in the country. Would the U.S. be as begrudgingly accepting if Ali Abdullah Saleh's position becomes untenable?
Definitely. I think Ali Abdullah Saleh will face exactly the same fate as was faced by President Mubarak. Ali Abdullah Saleh, I don't think, is able to withstand the amount of pressure internally and externally that was put on President Mubarak to leave. I think Ali Abdullah Saleh will be an easier issue. I think what's important to note here is that the rest of the countries that have already been tired of these regimes that have, everybody knows, the taxi driver knows, the fruit seller knows, that the people who are ruling the country have been taking its wealth. And therefore, the test here is really what happens in Egypt. If the United States does not stand with the people and which I see as unbelievable, Mr. Wisner has just indicated that Mr. Mubarak will steer the reforms. I think he will only steer it to recapture the state.
Okay.
And reintroduce the old methods again. Okay. Just for the sake that the status quo continues. I don't think that is a feasible option for President Saleh.
Okay. Khalid Loom in Boston, looking at what comes next, what comes ahead. A lot of the fears from many Western commentators and Western leaders and policymakers is the incompatibility, as they would put it, between Islamism and secular liberal democracy. We get the example that they tend to use of Hamas winning the elections in the Palestinian elections in 2006. But at the genesis of their fears is always the example of Algeria in that election, which triggered the civil war. I mean, is that a fair parallel that they make? And how much has the Algerian political landscape changed since those dark days?
I think that in the particular case of Algeria, and I think in Egypt as well, there is an exaggeration of the possibility of the repeat of what happened in 1992 in Algeria. Recently in Algeria, and by recently I mean the last 15 years, you've really had the practical extermination of the political force of the FIS, which was the party that won those elections in 1992. There's been a series of amnesties over the last 10 years that have been geared towards allowing people to take basically be absolved of the political ramifications of having been members of the FIS or having been members of the Islamist movement, while being given some kind of guarantee that they won't participate in politics. So they'll be given a little bit of money, maybe they'll be given a stipend, and they'll be told, don't speak up on politics, don't participate. Those who do participate, or who, I should say rather, those who do speak up, usually get whisked away and are arrested pretty quickly, then released, because they've learned their lesson, as someone in government might say. What you have now in government, you have the FLN, the RND, which are two basically secular political parties, establishment parties, and then the third party in the coalition is the MSP, or the Muslim Brotherhood, the Algerian Muslim Brotherhood, which is a pretty moderate party. Outside of that, the opposition is practically devoid of any organized Islamist force. They've been demoralized, they've been largely discredited because there are some of them who have participated in electoral processes through the MSP. And so most people in Algeria are completely divorced from the opposition as well as the government. The elections are seen as a sham, and people really aren't looking to participate in the system as it stands.
It seems as if it's a pretty bleak political landscape. I want to tap into our inbox for a bit. There's an email from Asif Rana from Hounslow in the UK, and he asks, what is the likelihood of Saudi Arabia, the most repressive regime in the region, seeing protests on its streets? Let's ask Anas Katish about that. Anas, what do you think?
Yes, I think it's highly unlikely. There has been some people demanding more women's rights or accountability for people responsible for the people who died in floods in Jeddah and Riyadh. But I think people revolt out of hunger. And country being, Saudi being the rich oil country that it is, it's highly unlikely that we'll see a similar popular movement as we've seen in Tunisia or in Egypt.
Okay.
So I think it's just not a possibility.
Okay, let's take another phone call. Mohammed from California. Mohammed, go ahead.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Hello, Mohammed. Go
Hello?
ahead.
Yeah. I go back in the when you asked the question about the reference. I think for Algeria or other country like Syria, nothing happened like you said. Basically, it's Tunisia is not the reference for these people to go out on the street and get what they want. Basically, they are waiting for Egypt and what can happen from Egypt. And basically, also there is the second thing. It seemed like it's a little bit strange what happened in Tunisia, and we want to know exactly directly who gave the order to Zain al-Abidin to leave the country. Did really the people giving him, or there is insider from the military who force him? They have to leave, and they have to do the exchange. Because that's basically the question. I saw the media, they didn't really take that seriously, or they don't have information.
Okay, fair enough. Mohammed, I'll pose that to our guests. I'll ask Dr. Saaduddin Talib about that. Mohammed making the point that Tunisia is not really the reference. Egypt is. Everybody's watching Egypt. And he asked, I mean, Mohammed is suggesting that there were other hands at play to tell Zain al-Abidin bin Ali to leave the country. What do you think?
I agree that Egypt is a better reference to the Arab world. That does not deny that Tunisia is another point of reference. If I remember that the concessions that were made by President Saleh, for instance, were first attempted to be attempted after the Tunisian revolution, and when Egypt was only beginning to rise. Now, if the Egyptians themselves are doing this because of what happened in Tunisia, that is a huge encouragement to the Egyptian people, and they were carrying the flags of Tunisia. And therefore, but that does not exclude that Egypt is a change in Egypt. And